In today's video, we're looking at why retirement in Canada fundamentally changes once you save a certain amount, and the hidden implications that many pre-retirees overlook. We've helped hundreds of clients plan successful retirements in Canada, and we deal with every aspect of financial planning. And unfortunately, despite reaching what seems like a substantial savings milestone, many retirees still find themselves questioning if they've saved enough. And that's why in today's video, we'll be breaking down the exact reasons why reaching a certain savings level changes everything in your retirement here in Canada. And it turns out we actually learned something from a few popular TV shows from 25 years ago that happen to still also apply to this very question. So we'll get to that too. I've talked in past videos like this one about why there isn't a magic number when it comes to your retirement. Every situation is going to be unique, but for better or for worse, it does seem like at a certain point, when you've reached a certain milestone, some things just start to click, get a little bit easier. New life pathways open up, and it seems like for the folks that we're working with, that happens sometime around when you've saved up about $1.5 million. Now let's break this down into the what, the why, and the how so that you can plan for your own retirement. So let's start with the what. What changes when you hit this milestone? Well, at this point, you'll see changes in about 5 areas. Now, first, you're now going to have a reasonable amount of income potential. So with $1.5 million of savings at a conservative withdrawal rate of 4%, you could potentially draw $60,000 a year from your portfolio and see that capital last for 25 or maybe 30 years based on that kind of elusive 4% rule. A handy rule of thumb, which starts to open your eyes to seeing life on the other side of your work. But number 2, at this point, you'll also start to face tax planning issues. You have to start thinking about the tax implications of how you're going to fund your retirement income stream. Because typically for folks who have savings in this range, much of it is in pre-tax buckets, either in their RRSPs, maybe pension accounts, or trapped inside their companies if they happen to be business owners. And $1.5 million is a decent bit of money. And so extracting the money from those buckets becomes an important challenge that just doesn't kind of exist in the same way if you've got, say, $500,000 set aside. We call this a ticking tax bomb. It's easy to ignore this money that you've saved up, and in gross dollars, it seems like an impressive amount, but typically you haven't paid tax on most of this money. And so there is this code to almost diffuse, and it requires a deliberate initiative to actually diffuse that tax bomb. By the way, if we haven't ever met, my name is Steve Willems. I'm a practicing certified financial planner and wealth advisor with the Willems Wealth Planning Group out here in BC. We started this channel to help you plan for your own retirement, helping you think about how to plan and arrange your investments, your income streams, and ideally pay less tax along the way. Now, the third thing that potentially changes is your investment strategy. For many people, they grow their wealth through concentration, right? Maybe a handful of stocks that worked really well. Maybe they sold a property that they held also for maybe a long time. A small thing working out really well. Concentration. But the key when you get around to this point, at this milestone, is that you begin to realize that wealth is preserved through diversification. It's grown through concentration, and it's preserved through diversification. So when the financial plan now shows that you don't need significant gains anymore to make your retirement plan work, you don't need to be swinging for the fences, for many people around this milestone, they also decide to kind of take the foot off that concentration gas pedal, and they start to reduce some of the risk in how they manage their retirement portfolio. Now, the fourth thing that changes is potentially access to future government benefits. Now, while your assets alone won't disqualify you from receiving CPP or OAS or anything like that, you may find that the income produced by your investments may now start to set you afoul of certain income-tested government programs. I'm talking specifically about OAS clawback here. Now, we've looked at this in past videos where you activate all of those sources of retirement income, and you can actually create too much income that you're actually forced to return any old age security payments that you received over the prior period. Catches some people off guard. And so because of this, it leads to a fifth thing, which are just the lifestyle considerations. For some reason, when people hit this milestone, they seem to kind of unlock a bit of newfound sense of accomplishment. And regardless of their age, they seem to now realize that their savings should and likely can afford them some type of comfortable standard of living that perhaps they haven't yet tapped into. They think it might be possible, but they're not living as though it is. We're talking here about new hobbies, travel, curiosities. It seems a lot of that stuff can be unlocked once you pass this milestone. I mentioned OAS clawback just a second ago. I can't go into kind of a full case kind of showing how that actually plays out here in this video because we've got to move on to the why. We'll break that down as a separate topic in more detail in a video in a few weeks' time. So to make sure you don't miss out on that one, just click that subscribe button to make sure you catch future updates. But what about that why? Why does retirement change when you hit this $1.5 million target? Let's loop back to that point about lifestyle from just a second ago. Do you remember the most popular TV show way back in the year 2000? So right after the Y2K scare, right? The hit TV show at that time, Survivor, came on the tube, and we were all introduced to this crazy show that's gone on to produce 47 subsequent seasons. And do you happen to remember the amount of prize money in that inaugural season? It was $1 million. Do you have any guess what the prize pot here is today, 47 seasons later? It's still $1 million. Now, why are we talking about this? Well, $1 million today ain't what it used to be. Regis Philbin's Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? It was a fantastic concept, but Who Wants to Be a $1.5 Millionaire just doesn't have the same ring to it, but I think it accomplishes a similar effect. So in my mind and in our clients' experiences, this seems to feel true. The math actually supports those vibes too. Now, according to this inflation calculator from the Bank of Canada, that $1 million prize money in the year 2000 would now need to be about $1.69 million to have the same purchasing power as the $1 million back in the year 2000. And in the same way, $1 million was a transformative amount back then, so too is $1.5 million today for the typical Canadian retiree. Now, why is that? Well, generally speaking, hitting this number is the modern day equivalent to winning Survivor in the year 2000. Back then, it unlocked significant life choices, namely, where do I want to live and do I still need to work? And for the average pre-retiree with $1.5 million saved up, who's also kind of thinking, do I have enough? They're at the point where it's fair game to now run the numbers. And more than likely, absent kind of any wild phantom fixed costs or unhinged spending on hobbies, I'm looking at you, horse lovers, you should have some pretty good early retirement options here to consider. Now, if you're not sure if you actually have enough, if you haven't run those numbers yet yourself, my team and I, we help folks answer that question all the time. I'll put a link in the description below and my team can take a look at your exact situation and help you come up with a game plan if that helps. So that's the what and the why, but what about the how? If this is you, how can you maximize your situation? Well, a few thoughts here. First, just maybe reflect on the journey to this point and try to see if you now feel different about your situation than maybe you did 5 years ago when you weren't as far along as you are now. I'd venture a guess that you probably feel surprised by the progress that you've made in just the last few years. Like, how did we get here? If that's you, just pause long enough to ask and wonder, how does that make you feel, right? And if the numbers happen to support a retirement here in this moment in your life, would you actually want to exercise that option? With the speed of life, right? Like we can easily miss and fly on past this milestone, bump straight past it without acknowledging the fact that you actually have probably more choice at this point than you're willing to realize. Do I continue the rat race, or is now a decent time to be looking for an off-ramp? That's number one. Second, if your gut is now telling you to start looking for the exit, maybe it's now time to run the plan, right? And we're not talking about kind of a long-term net worth projection in the traditional sense here, but an actual strategic retirement income or a decumulation plan. You need to map these things out on top of each other. So on this channel, we do our best to kind of show you what this looks like, how to make those decisions, but you'll essentially want to kind of figure out for you, when is the best time to take CPP? How do you maximize those benefits? When's the right time to draw down on those RSPs? When to do that? How does the asset mix inside those accounts need to change? Does the TFSA factor into that? all that good stuff. So now that you know why retirement changes once you kind of hit that $1.5 million milestone, you got to understand too that it doesn't necessarily mean that it will be the same for you. There may be many factors that impact your own situation that we haven't covered here. So if you want us to sit down with you and kind of analyze kind of what you got going on, and maybe help you coming up with that plan, I put a link in that description below for a free kind of one-on-one call with myself. I'd be happy to chat with you if you're kind of working through some of these issues right now. Otherwise, hey, that's all we got for now. I hope that's helpful. I'll see you in the next video.